Hi, Jocelyn.
Hello, hello.
Is your name pronounced Kiana?
It's Kiana.
Kiana, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Where are you joining us from?
South Carolina.
Oh, awesome. Well, is this your first Ignite event?
It is.
Oh,
welcome.
Welcome. How did you hear about this event?
My social worker, not social worker, my social work professor told us about the convention. And that's why I joined, because I thought it was interesting.
Nice.
That's
Well,
awesome.
welcome. How exciting. Latika and Rapunzel, y'all should recruit her to be the next fellow. I'm just saying.
We should what?
Recruit her to be the next fellow for South Carolina.
Oh, what year are you like are you in undergrad right now?
I'm a grad student. I'm
graduating.
Okay.
In May.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
What are you getting your degree in?
Social work, master of social work.
Oh, did you say that? And I might have missed it. I'm so sorry.
No, I don't think I did.
Okay. But that's awesome. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Like my fiance is interested in that field as well. And so because she already works in the area, but she's thinking about going back to school and getting her degree in that field.
Okay.
So have you read up a little bit about Ignite and what we do or who we are? What do you know about us so far?
I don't know like a whole lot about you guys.
Okay, and it's okay if you don't know much. That's why we're here, so we can tell you. So let me formally introduce myself. My name is Latika Sims. I'm actually the fellow in San Antonio, Texas. And Rapunzel Boykin, she's the fellow. Is it Alabama? I always forget. Yes, she's the fellow in Alabama. And then Jocelyn Yao, she is the policy director. Yes, the policy director.
Managers, hopefully soon director.
Gotta speak it. But so Ignite is a national organization that heavily focuses on empowering young women to be active in our community, civic engagement, run for office. That's the biggest thing. Run for office, whether it's elected, like an elected official, whether it's a board, wherever you can make change in your community. We give you the tools to do that. Like we don't just say, let's go do it. No, we give you the tools to do it as well and help you develop those skill sets. So we have events like this, we have workshops, we have all kinds of opportunities for you to learn so that you can find your power and use those tools to enact change in your community as well. And if, running for office isn't what you want to do, but you still want to be a change maker, we give you suggestions and ideas on how to do that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was a lovely introduction to what Ignite is. Well, with that being said, we'll get started on today's breakout session. And Tulia, who is a phenomenal intern here with Ignite, she will be sharing her screen. And if you could click present. Right there. I saw it. Yep, you got it. Awesome. Loading. We'll give it a few seconds. Okay, there we go. And if you go to in case you kind of just stumbled upon this breakout room and not sure what's happening, well, this is the Legislative Advocacy Workshop, and specifically we'll be talking about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Next slide, please. So today we'll be talking about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and one of the things that we have set up during this pandemic. So before the pandemic, we actually used to bring our young women around the country. We used to bring them to DC to advocate for different issues that matter to us, to our community. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to do so. But just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean that our work stops. In fact, injustices are happening around us every day, even before, during, and it will continue to happen after the pandemic if we don't take any action. And so we're not going to let this pandemic silence us. And one of the things that we have invested in here at Ignite is digital advocacy. And we have digital advocacy tools set up on our website, which you could visit by going to our website. And I'll drop that link in the chat box right now. Let me do that. Or you could text Ignite the Capital to 25994. Personally, I prefer just going straight to the website because I am a little bit cheap, which texting costs, I think, like a few cents. But that's my personal preference, whichever works best for you. Just you could visit our website, and right when you go in there, it will show you one of the first key bills. It's John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And we have pre-populated emails that you could send to your legislators. We have pre-populated tweet that you could tweet out, and those only take a few seconds at most. So if you have the time, just take some while you're listening to our speakers, or while I'm speaking right now, you could do so as well. If you go to the next slide. While we just did this, but I do want to give everyone a chance who haven't done this to introduce yourself, and why did you choose to attend this breakout session, and what is the one thing you hope to learn from today's session? And Amy, we actually haven't heard from you. Would you like to kick us off, Amy?
Me?
Yeah, you, Amy. We only have one Amy here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Zucro. I'm a colleague of Jocelyn's at Ignite. And I just always love to hear from everybody about what they're doing from an advocacy perspective. I think Jocelyn always does a phenomenal job of just breaking it down and seeming easy to do and digestible. And the voting stuff, to me, voting rights is just, I mean, what we saw happen to Representative Park Cannon in Georgia last week was just insane and horrible, and anything we can do to support the rights of everybody to vote, I'm here, I'm ready to go. So thank you.
Thank you. I know, Latika, you shared a little bit earlier. Is there anything that you want to share? Anything else?
I'm just excited and I'm revved up. You mentioned earlier how timely this session was, and I couldn't agree more, especially with everything happening in Georgia, with all the bills being passed, and here in Texas. I feel like I get worked up, I'm frustrated, but that's why we're here, so that we can channel all this frustration into action. So I just want to say I'm excited. I'm ready for us to learn, and so we can get to work.
Thank you for sharing. Rapunzel, do you want to share?
I, like Latika, I am very excited about this, just to hear what you all think about the act itself. And then also, like everybody said, it's very timely. We have, we've come a long way from where we were, but we still have a lot of work to do. So ready to see what all we're going to get into.
Thank you. And Kiana, I know you did introduce yourself earlier, but would you like to share why did you choose to attend this breakout session, and what is the one thing you hope to learn from today's session?
So I thought that this breakout session was interesting, and as everybody else said, it was just very, very timely as well, because really voter suppression is a real thing, and we just keep seeing it over and over and over again. So I hope to learn more about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act as well.
Awesome, thank you. And we'll go to the next slide, which Latika did a lovely introduction for me already. So my name is Jocelyn Yao. I am the policy manager for Ignite National, and you can reach me at jocelyn@ignitenational.org. I actually got started with Ignite when I was still a college student at UC Berkeley, and I wanted to run for office, but I wasn't sure how where, you know, all the questions, I had all the questions, but I knew one thing. I was like, I want to run for office. And nobody took me seriously. I was only 20 years old. People are like, no, you're too young. Your family is not in politics. You don't know how to fundraise. You know, I got all the backlash, but only one person without hesitation said, yes, you should do it. And not only that, she helped me. She was the first person who taught me how to call for money and how to fundraise. And that person is that person is Sarah Guillermo, who is currently the executive director for Ignite National. So that was how I got involved with Ignite, and I've been with them ever since then. Now as the policy manager. And next, I believe we have Latika.
So, like I mentioned earlier, my name is Latika Sims. I am the fellow in San Antonio, Texas for Ignite. A little bit of background on me. I actually got involved in this because a mentor that I looked up to told me about the program after I had finished my term as student government president, and I was gearing up to graduate. Politics, my interest in that kicked up fairly recently, honestly, like within the past couple of years. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, how I wanted to, move through my life career wise. And I'm a business major. That's what I graduated in. That's what I thought I wanted to do. But when I joined student government, I realized I like change. I like to be a part of change. I like to come up with the solutions and work with others to find those solutions. And that eventually led me towards the realm of politics. And so by the time I had become involved with Ignite, I actually was interning for a city council office in my city, District 2. And now I'm employed there, actually. And got a promotion not too long ago, so that's exciting. But I'm excited because my long-term goal is to run for office myself. I plan to run for city council soon, it's within my 5-year plan, put it like that. I plan to run for city council, and I'm even toying with the idea of after that pursuing Congress, because the more I see the issues, the more I'm like, what can I do? How can I make something happen? Because I've experienced a lot of the things that we're working to change. I've experienced personally, and it makes me mad that the people who are supposed to be representing us often don't know what we're feeling or don't fully understand where we're coming from because they aren't connected the way they're supposed to be with their constituents, or they haven't been in our shoes. And I want to change that. Oh, and you can reach me on my social media right there, Instagram, TK Junedove, or my email.
Yes, preach. I wish, well, this is being recorded, so I'll probably go back and pull up what you just said and tweet that. But exactly, like I'm right there with you, Latika. That was the reason why I wanted to run for office, was because I realized, those who were serving on my school board did not give, just did not care about the students. So I'm right there with you. And I hope to, within that 5 years, we heard that we're going to hold you accountable, and I'll check in with you within the next few years. Well, with that, and we have Rapunzel. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Rapunzel. I am the Alabama Fellow. How I got involved with Ignite, another fellow, actually, she used to go viral on Twitter all the time. And that's how I, figured out that she was a fellow, but I didn't know that there was a fellowship site in Alabama. So when I found out that there was a fellowship site in Alabama, I was like, oh my God, I have to do that. I had been previously involved with the NAACP on my campus and I had become like an activist on campus. Like I was used to organizing students, mobilizing students on campus, but I never ran for SGA, but I used to always just do it anyway. So the fellowship really, it's been great, just being able to meet so many different people from all over the world that I never would have gotten a chance to meet, and then sit on platforms such as this. It's been great, and I've been enjoying it. So that's me. Oh, you can reach me on social media. We both forgot. My Instagram is my name, and then my email is rapunzel@ignitenational.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And, we all, both Rapunzel and Latika, we all talk about how timely this workshop is. And I just want to share, a few of this screenshots. Actually, go to the next slide where you'll see, some of the news articles that, and what some of the things that have been happening. And these are some of the news articles that were published. It's a shame, last week, the governor for Georgia, which shall not be named, signed a new voter suppression bill into law. And we know why. We know it's because in 2020, they saw the power of the people. And this disgraceful legislation, it's going to impose new ID requirement for absentee ballots. It's going to limit drop boxes as if it's not being limited already. It's going to allow state to take over local election. And this is personally, I think, the most ridiculous part. It even criminalizes giving water to people in line who are waiting to vote. You know what? Just because of that, you can count on me to fly into Georgia for the next presidential election to give out water. I've never felt so motivated to give people water. This law is just absolutely ridiculous. But all of that is we all know this. It's to suppress the votes, the voters of Georgians. There are millions of Georgians who won't be able to vote because of this absolutely ridiculous law. And it's going to make voting even harder, not easier. And we know this affects predominantly Black and Brown communities. And this is just one of the many extreme and racist voter suppression laws that's making its way through state legislatures across the country. And this is not the only one. There's so many, in fact, the article on the right, if you have access to the New York Times, you should read about this. They are the Republicans and allies, they are drafting quote unquote best practices for restricting voting. And they are gonna take those quote unquote, again, best practices and implement it in states across the country. And some of the examples that was mentioned in the article are like the Alabama's voter ID law. And they're all these best practices. And again, it's quote unquote best practices because we know those practices are meant to uphold white supremacy and to suppress the people's voice. It's not best practices for people like you and I. It's best practices for those who have been in power for so long, and they're so afraid of losing that because they saw what happened in 2020. And so one of the things that we can do right now, and one of the things that we should do right now to combat all these absolutely ridiculous racist state laws is to advocate for the passage of John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And the next slide I'll talk a little bit about, actually next slide, one more, I'll talk about, what the bill does. But I don't want, also, I understand that, we have a time restriction, and then frankly, I don't want to bore everyone on what it will do, but basically it will make voting more accessible and also to hold states accountable. And in fact, I'll share in the chat box 2 blog posts that were written. The first one was written by Janisha Harris, who is a fellow for Ignite. And she wrote this lovely blog post about what the John Lewis Voting Rights John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. I'm just going to call it VRAA. John Lewis VRAA, what it will do and how it will help with voting restrictions across the country. And this is just one of the snapshots. And it will hold states accountable for a period of 10 years. And go to the next slide. this is a continuation of the explanation of what the bill will do. It will review changes in voting and set measures. And also personally, I am also one of the things that I'm really passionate about and and this bill actually helps to make sure to do that, is to make sure that we have multilingual voting materials. For me, I'm very involved in the AAPI community, and it's a challenge. It's been a challenge. Like my grandma, she doesn't speak English, but where I live, we only have voting materials in English and Spanish. And for her, despite having a huge AAPI population, in my city, we have 25% AAPI population, and yet we don't have any voting materials for the AAPI population. So this bill will help address that as well. And then go to the next slide. And this it will also, again, to hold states accountable by through the federal court, and increases transparency, which we need that so badly right now. I mean, just look at Georgia. The bill was signed into law behind closed door, and a state legislator who was elected by the people couldn't even go in and witness that. In fact, she was arrested just for knocking the door, just for asking for access to the governor's office. That's absolutely ridiculous. That is the opposite of transparency. That is not acceptable. And so, we need, now more so than ever, we need the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And also very important, it will also increase protections for Native American voters as well, which we really need that. Next slide. So before I go into relational organizing, I want to open this up for a fireside chat, or just a candid conversation between y'all. How are you feeling with everything that's happening, and also what are your thoughts? And I'll let that, in fact, I'll let Latika lead this conversation. And if you could take down the slide, that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I always have something to say. So before I say anything, I want to give it to you guys to see what you guys are feeling. What are your guys' thoughts, your personal experiences based off of what you're seeing on social media, what you guys' conversations are with your friends and family. What are your guys' thoughts on all this? And how do you feel about it now that you have some more information about the potential that the John Lewis Act could have to combat these issues?
Well, I guess for me, I'm happy that this act is addressing the issues that we see now, but actually looking at social media and seeing what people are talking about, it can be just extremely draining. Like right now, I'm looking at the Derek Chauvin case as well, and that's kind of draining for me as well, because we keep going through the same exact stuff, and it's like, are we really making progress, or are people still in the mind frame or the mindset of like, oh, this is what I want to do, this is white supremacy, without them like actually saying that's what it is, but we all know that's really what it is,
I definitely understand that. It can get disheartening at times, where it feels like we're constantly going in a cycle of we're trying to make change, and yet we keep hitting a brick wall. But I will say this, particularly with Georgia, because they're the hot seat right now, probably like even more so than Texas. Stacey Abrams, I think, in a huge way changed the game. And a lot of people aren't really seeing it because they're like, well, where's Stacey Abrams now? She's still working. Like, that's the thing. She's still working, but this is a long game. You can't expect to dismantle pretty much 400 years of systemic racism and everything that was built in those years to work against us, essentially. You can't expect to dismantle that within like a decade or two. It's just not likely. But
Oh no, did Latika froze on your And
Yeah.
I was like, I was really in it. I was like, oh my goodness, like okay. She's gonna have to repeat it.
Yeah. Well, I guess while we're waiting on like Latika to come back, I would say like to your point, yes, it is draining. But one thing that like Ignite has like taught us from like the first day of our fellowship was to always remember like why we started and like, you know, what is our original point for getting involved in this work, because it is draining, and you will get like burnt out. But I think Stacey Abrams' story is also good to remember because she's been working for so long and she finally saw like the fruits of all of the labor that she put in happen, you know, just this past year, and she'll continue to see it, even with other states in the near future. So that's what I would say. Just like figure out your why and always remember like why you started. Latika, do you want to go back and say what you were saying again?
I think you have to repeat what you just said. Like we lost you right at, you basically said, I cannot say it the way you said it because it was so, you basically said along the line of you can't expect to dismantle almost 400 years of systemic racism against us in a decade or two, and then you froze.
Sorry. So, and I'm joining from my phone if it looks weird, just because I was like, I'm not waiting for my computer. But yes, so you can't expect to dismantle that in like a couple of decades. And the thing is, what Stacey Abrams accomplished was like a hope, a beacon of hope that we needed. No, it didn't win the war, because that's what this is. This is a war. We are constantly fighting battles to secure our rights, to secure our visibility, to secure what we should have, what we rightfully have, what we rightfully should have. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be something that is going to take longevity. It's going to take us uplifting each other, holding each other down, encouraging each other. But what Stacey Abrams started is just like, I don't think I could have said it better. She started something there. Yes, because often we felt like there was no hope. Often we felt like it's pointless. And when she came through and flipped Georgia, like even just hearing that Georgia is a blue state right now, it's crazy. It doesn't even sound realistic. Like that's like saying Texas is not a red state. It doesn't make sense. I need her to come here because that is history making. That is a turning point. And we need to continue that. It is our job to continue that. And here's the other thing, like not to be dark, not to be moral, but just to be real. All those people that are in office right now, they are old. They're old. They're getting up there. They're not going to be there forever. And when those seats open up, when those opportunities present themselves, we can't have let the fire die. We can't. The fire still needs to be burning so that at those times, when it's time to refill those seats, when it's time to elect those new officials, we can put the people in place that actually represent us, like what's happened in Georgia now. That governor will not be there forever. So when it is time to replace him, it is our job to spread the fire that we're feeling right now and replace him with someone that represents our best interests, so that we don't continue the pattern that has happened for the past 400 years. So we don't continue to have people that don't represent our best interests, that want to continue to uphold white supremacy, that want to continue to suppress our votes, suppress our voice. We need to make sure that we are louder than they are, and that we are active, and that we don't let them discourage us, because when that happens, they will continue this. When they win and they make us feel like this is pointless and that we're not making any progress, when we listen to that lie, because that's literally what it is a lie. If we weren't making progress, they wouldn't be passing these laws. The reason they're passing them is because they are scared. The reason that they're passing these sweeping legislative actions is because they're like, oh crap, they realize what they can do. We need to keep making them scared, because eventually they're going to be cornered right out the seat, and we can go back and rectify everything that we need to, because we're putting the right people in those seats. I'm gonna stop now because I'm like fully on my soapbox.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And you're absolutely right. Like they would not have passed these legislations if they were not afraid of the people's voice. Yep.
Hi, Anna.
Hey y'all, sorry I'm late. I just like got on break and I'm now joining the conference and it's good to see everyone.
Good to see everyone. Well, Anna, so we're currently talking about, we're just, like a like open floor, let everyone share with everything that's happening in Georgia just a few days ago. But I was also sharing how, yes, even though Georgia is on a spotlight, but this is not an isolated incident. In fact, just New York Times just published this article how they're explaining how the GOP, they are actually establishing quote unquote best practices, like they're gonna push all these best practices laws and legislations across the country. And that includes, according to them, some of the best practices include voter ID law, limiting ballot boxes, what in Georgia's case, not handing out water to voters while waiting in line. And they're working it. And so how do we combat that, right? Like how do we hold states accountable? And one of the ways it's what that we talk about, it's through John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. When states failed to protect the people's voice, then we need the federal level to step up. We need those in Congress to step up. We need the president to step up. And so, that's what we've been sharing. It's that, like how we're feeling and what are our thoughts and all of that.
I would say another problem that we run into too is gerrymandering with candidates like picking their basically voter pool. Anna actually had an event a couple weeks ago that was all about gerrymandering, but that's a big problem, especially here in Alabama. They basically like rewritten the what do you call them? The territories essentially to cherry pick their voters. So, and that's something else you have to like combat as well when you're talking about voting. Like, what district are you voting in? Who's running in that district? How have they set it up for themselves to win? That kind of thing. So,
yeah, in fact, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Latika. Go ahead.
A lot.
No, I'll bounce it right out. Just a really quick thought. And you brought up gerrymandering. That's actually something that when I saw that article about how they're preparing for all these best practices to be pushed across the states, my immediate thought was, oh my goodness, this just happened 10 years ago with gerrymandering. That was exactly what they did. Was they had all these it started with an idea, and then they pushed that throughout the entire nation. But no one on Congress or on federal level were there to in a way regulate that. And so I feel like history is repeating itself. They're strategizing. Don't think that they are dumb or anything. Like, they are strategizing. They're thinking of ways to silence the people's vote. And so, we gotta outsmart them. We gotta outwork them, and that's the only way that we can make sure that the people's voice are being heard. So anyway, Latika, I know you were gonna say something. So
I was just gonna add a little bit to Rapunzel's point about the issues with gerrymandering, and even going further just into the fact of like we still have the issues with not enough voter sites in different communities in different areas. They'll have like one to service a whole county. Like that's insane. And we're not talking like little ones. We're talking like large counties. That was an issue we had here in Texas, where they had one drop-off location for all of Bexar County. And when you think about it, you may not be familiar with it, but Bexar County is not a small area. There were people having to drive as far away as like 40 minutes to get to the drop-off location. Who's going to do that? especially when mail-in votes was a big thing. Who's gonna do that? Stuff like that. It hits on so many levels where they're working so hard to keep the vote out so that they can stay in place and continue to push out the legislation that they want to push out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm very fortunate to live in California, but I remember reading about all of that on the news, and it's ridiculous. Like, people have to travel so far just to drop off their ballot. That's not acceptable. Yeah, that's definitely, that's frustrating. And here we are, like, we have people complaining who have to drive for 15-20 minutes. And um it's, we definitely need to mobilize our community to make sure that people have access to voting. And this bill in Georgia, it's going to make it even more difficult. They're going to limit the ballot boxes even further, which is absolutely ridiculous. So, I with that, what can we do? So I'm going to talk a little bit about relational organizing. And they don't the quickest way for a bill to not pass, or for a bill to fail in this case, is to do nothing. And we want to make sure that I want to make sure that we're putting pressure on our legislators to make sure that they know that we care about this bill. They need to know that we care about this bill. They need to know that we care about the people's voice. So let me share my screen real quick. Share screen. Here, present. So relational organizing, what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that people, well, first, people know what's happening, which I'm assuming people already know what's happening, but also, how can we make sure that beyond knowing what's happening, how can we make sure that we're pushing for the solution? Yes, we can talk about the problem all day long. I think we all know that already, but how can we also push for the solution? And step one, I want all of you to think about, like, people in your life. Who are the key people that you can get in touch with, who will align with your mission? Identify, like, your friends. It could be your family, individuals, community organizations, on-campus organizations, professors. I know, Latika, you mentioned you were the student body president. So how can you potentially mobilize your student government using the relationship that you already have? How can you mobilize them and have them advocate and push for this bill? And I know, I can't see the names now because I'm sharing my screen, but I'm so sorry. Let me pull up all the names. Yeah, I can see the name, but the one from South Carolina, I'm so sorry. What's your name again? I've been trying to pull up your name. Kiana. Okay, yes, I'll write it down so that I'm not relying on Zoom. Kiana, like you mentioned, you're a grad school student, and your professor, your professor was the one recommended you to this conference. Well, maybe you could go back to your professor and say, well, did you know about the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act? How can we mobilize our classmates? How can we mobilize other professors? How can we mobilize the entire department to push for this legislation? And I know, Rapunzel, you're working at a college, right? Like, how can you mobilize other students, other faculty, other administrators, staff to push for this legislation? So think about those people in your life, and share with them why this bill matters to you. And if they are truly your friends, they should care about these bills, because they affect every single one of us here on this Zoom. So I will take 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes, write it down, because we want to actually envision, and this is the thing that I always tell myself too: if I don't write it down, it's not gonna happen. Write it down, list one person per category, or it could be, other people in other categories. This is just an example. You don't have to stick with these categories, but list those people down. Like, who are those people whom you're going to reach out to after today, after this breakout session? We'll give it like a minute or so. And if you have their contact information, even better, write it down, like right next to their name, what's their email address or what's the best number to reach them, or their social media. I know some people work best with social media. Latika, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would you like to share who do you have on your list?
Yes, so I started off with the easiest one for me. The local elected official would be my boss, Councilwoman Jada Andrews Sullivan. The next, as far as a statewide elected official, would be Representative Leo Pacheco. I actually have a bit of a connection with him because I met him while I was serving as SGA, and we graduated from the same school. Of course, very different timelines, but still that connection is there. As far as a community organization, I've been getting more involved with an organization called Black Freedom Factory, and they actually helped organize the event that Black Voters Matter came and participated in over the weekend, the protest that happened over the weekend. And then a student organization. That one's a little more challenging for me since I've graduated, but I'm inclined to lean on my sorority because I'm still involved as a graduate chapter member, so I can connect with the undergrad that way.
Awesome, thank you. And if anyone else wants to share? I'm assuming y'all have the list. Let me know when you're ready. I'll take that as a yes. Okay. Well, the second step is to actually reach out, right? It's you're not just gonna have the list sitting there. So how to reach out? Call, email, text, social media. Identify for each of the person or each of the group right next to it. Identify how are you planning on reaching out to them, and when are you gonna do so? And then also, what's your elevator pitch? If you're calling, how are you gonna well, introduce yourself, but also how are you gonna explain why this bill is so important to you? So I take a minute or so, write it down. If you don't write it down, again, it's not gonna happen. We know how this works. Write it down, make a plan, and we can take the next few minutes to also practice our elevator pitch if anyone feels ready and comfortable to do so. Anyone feels comfortable with elevator pitch?
I'll do one. It's not gonna be that great because it's really gonna be on the
It's
fly.
okay. It's okay.
So I'll do Representative Pacheco since out of the next, he'd be the hardest one for me since we have the I get like a Barris relationship, I guess. Pretending I'm on the phone. Good afternoon, Representative Pacheco. My name is Latika Sims. I'm not sure if you remember me, but I met you briefly through Student Government Association during an event hosted by A&M San Antonio. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember you, whatever. So I wanted to reach out to you because there is a bill that is being presented called the John Lewis Voting Act. And I wanted to express to you how important it was that this bill was supported by you in particular. You have made it a point to celebrate and empower young people in education, and this falls in line with that. How can we continue to? It's important that young people are able to know of their rights, are able to execute their rights, and be empowered. And this bill helps support that, especially with all of the bills that are being passed right now that work against it. And so even just having one voice, especially when it's prominent as yours, will go a long way to help influence others in the legislature to support it and fight for our rights, fight for our ability to vote and not have our voices suppressed. So I hope
that was great. That was great. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that was phenomenal. I can't believe you came up with that right on the spot. That was very impressive. Great job. That was amazing. Yes, and you know, it's so important that we reach out to all these like local elected officials, statewide elected officials, even though this is a congressional bill, but having them supporting their bill, having them endorsing the bill, adding their names to the bill, add pressure to the Congress. So thank you. That was phenomenal. I'm not gonna put anyone on the spot. That's kind of hard to follow up with. But I'll go right next to the next slide. So one of the things also that I know we're a little bit short on time, but after this I would also encourage everyone to do is research what is your state voting law. Every state has a different voting law. And it's so important that we all know what are our state's voting law, and think about how can you help enact change at local level. And you know, I'll give an example here in California. So what happened was that because of the pandemic, every single voter was able to receive a mail-in ballot at home in November of 2020. But in my city, we had a local election happening in March, this past March, and guess what? We're still in a pandemic. And so one of the things that I personally pushed for was to mail everyone a mail-in ballot, just like what we did in November of 2020. And that bill passed. It was a state bill. It passed the state legislature in February of 2021. So 2 months. No, last month. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm like, being a mom just makes me, I'm so confused with all the dates and times. But so that bill passed, and because of my work with advocacy and making sure that, you know, every single voters were able to get a mail-in ballot, in March when we had the special election, every single voter indeed got a mail-in ballot. So that's one of the examples, right? So think about like, what is your state specific, like what is your state voting law? Every single state is different. And so with that, how can you help enact change at the local level? And that will be your homework for the breakout session. And I do want to share, I know just now I share the link to advocacy, and I just want to show it to y'all. This is what it looks like. So once you go onto our website, you can take action here and review. So you put in your name, your email address, your where you live, and then this is the pre-populated email. However, I also challenge everyone, if you haven't sent one already, to add a personalized message. I think, you know, the thing about politics is that personal is politics and politics is personal. And there's nothing more powerful. There's absolutely nothing more powerful than your personal stories. And just adding that personal touch makes, you know, add that human touch to it, and makes it more relatable. And so I would challenge every one of you to add that personalized message, and then you can hit send. We also have pre-populated tweets that you could just tweet, like just send, and you're good to go. Or you could also customize your tweet. It's entirely up to you. And we also have Facebook posts that you could use, and also a phone bank script. Unless you're like Latika, you know, you could just come up with a script on the spot, which was phenomenal. We also have a script that's here ready for you. You could use it. And if you know, especially if this is your first time phone banking, I remember my very first time phone banking, I was so nervous, y'all. I don't even remember what I said, but I know it could be a very nerve-wracking experience. And also one important thing that I want to note is that if you get a voicemail, don't hang up. leave a voicemail. Staffers actually check all the voicemails. So don't just hang up, leave a voicemail, and it will get logged into the system. And thank you to our intern Tulia, who actually helped prepare all of this. So I hope that you will take this tool. If you haven't done so already, take the next few minutes to send the email, send the tweet out to raise awareness. And then, but not only that, I challenge every single one of you to send this link to those people whom you have identified earlier. When you remember how we talk about relational organizing, send this link to those people, to your classmates, to your roommates, to your friends, your family, and have them take action as well. There's power in numbers. And remember, we cannot do this alone. There's the opposite side who's organizing every day since November 2020 election. They have been organizing. They have been putting forth legislations like what we saw last week in Georgia. And if we don't outwork them, if we don't out-organize them, if we get comfortable simply because we got, who out of the White House, if we stop our work now, we are going to have to face the consequences for the next decades and for years to come. And we saw that with redistricting. Just because we didn't do the work, and we end up having to live and we were stuck with gerrymandered districts for 10 years. So hopefully we can change that this coming year. But point being is, we need to organize our community. We need to get the word out so that we don't have to, so that hopefully we don't see more of the bills like what happened in Georgia. Hopefully we don't see more of that throughout the country. So with that, I know it's time. So any thoughts, any last thoughts? I'll give y'all this opportunity to share any thoughts or anything that you want to share. No.
I just want to say I hope that this was informative enough to be a tool and help to motivate so that we can take this knowledge, take this information and hold the people who represent us accountable. And, now that we know what this bill is about and have a better understanding, we can know what we're asking our representatives. We can know what we're asking the people who are supposed to be our voice and advocate for us. And, use this information and be like, hey, this is what we want, this is what we need, this is why we need it. Push to help us make it happen.
Yep, second everything Latika just said. So thank you all for joining this session. And I hope, again, take that list from the relational organizing and then send them the link and also make that pitch. So thank you all again. Enjoy the rest of your conference.